The lights inside the ballroom at the Waldorf Astoria shimmered like stars caught in crystal. Waiters moved like clockwork through the crowd. Trays of champagne flutes held aloft with perfect posture, while a quartet played a soft jazz rendition of Vivaldi. It was a kind of night that whispered wealth, power, and carefully controlled charm. And at the center of it all stood billionaire tech mogul Daniel Ashford, perfectly sculpted in a custom-tailored tuxedo, his signature half-smile broadcasting ease he did not feel. From a distance, Daniel looked like everything a man in his position should be: tall, commanding, charming in a way that made people want to be around him even when he said nothing. But tonight, the smile felt brittle. It had been a long year, a profitable one, sure, but long. He was exhausted, not from the deals, but from the performance. These events, these rituals of champagne and flattery, they drained him. Yet, as the CEO of Ashford Global, presence was non-negotiable. He raised his glass when the crowd applauded, nodded graciously when someone from Forbes asked for a quick interview, and took a calculated sip of whiskey as he moved toward the stage. The gala was honoring his company's 10th year Funding the Future Innovators Grant, a philanthropic arm he barely paid attention to but funded generously. A speech was expected, 5 minutes max. "Ladies and gentlemen," came the voice of the event director through the microphone, "please join me in welcoming the man who turned code into an empire and ideas into impact, Mr. Daniel Ashford." Applause swelled. Daniel stepped up with practiced poise. He gave the expected speech, hopeful, modest, visionary. They loved that. He made sure to mention the children who had benefited from the grant, the startups now thriving, the schools they built in underfunded districts. He even cracked a joke about his first startup being run out of a dorm room the size of a closet. The audience laughed, but in the middle of the third paragraph, he saw her, a girl, no more than 9 or 10, standing just beyond the edge of the crowd. Alone, no one else seemed to notice her, as if she were invisible to them. But to him, she might as well have been under a spotlight. There was something in her eyes, sharp, unwavering, hauntingly familiar. He paused. His breath caught, just for a second, enough for a ripple of confusion to flicker across the front row. Then he blinked, composed himself, and finished the speech. Applause. Cameras. Another handshake. Another toast. But when he looked back, the girl was gone. After the event, Daniel lingered by the bar longer than usual, scanning the room. He asked when the security guards if a child had wandered in by mistake, but they shook their heads. No children had been seen on the guest list or security footage. A ghost, perhaps? A trick of light? But something in his gut whispered otherwise. That night, in his penthouse overlooking the city, Daniel poured a drink he didn't want and sat in silence. His life was full of schedules, of meetings, of data, of decisions. But not a family. Not anymore. He hadn't spoken to his father in 8 years. His mother had passed. He'd never married. There had been relationships, of course. Flings, affairs, some lasting longer than others, all fading the same. He told himself he didn't have time. That intimacy was for those who didn't have the world on their shoulders. That love, real love, was a liability. But that girl... The next morning, Daniel sat in his office, reviewing investment memos, when his assistant knocked. "There's someone here to see you," she said, her tone uncertain. "I don't have any meetings until 10. She's not on the schedule, but she's insistent." Daniel sighed. "Send her away." "She says she's your daughter." The pen in his hand froze. He looked up sharply. "What?" "She says her name is Emma." The name hit him like cold water. He hadn't heard that name in years. A name from a summer long past. From a woman named Claire Jensen. He stood. Where is she? In the lobby, with her mother. Daniel's pulse kicked into overdrive. He straightened his collar, checked his reflection, and walked out with deliberate steps. The lobby was quiet, unusually so for a weekday morning. There, on the velvet bench near the windows, sat the girl he'd seen at the gala, and next to her, the woman he hadn't seen in over a decade, Claire. His mind tumbled back to the year they'd met, a startup conference in Seattle. He was nobody back then, just another ambitious coder with a broken laptop and a dream. Claire was a junior event coordinator, passionate, wicked smart, and brimming with fire. They'd spent that whole weekend together, and then another, and then a few more months. But Daniel had chosen the company, the late nights, the obsession. He'd left. No explanations. No closure. He approached, his heart pounding. Claire looked up, eyes steady. No smile. "Daniel." "Claire." He swallowed. Is this? This is Emma, she said simply. Your daughter. Emma looked up, calm, direct, just like at the gala. She had his eyes, his jawline. There was no mistaking it. Daniel sat down slowly, unable to form a coherent thought. Why now? Claire took a breath. Because she deserves to know who you are, and because she found out anyway. You never... I tried to contact you, Daniel. Once. I sent a letter. But your company replied with a legal notice. He flinched. He never saw that letter. Legal had probably handled it as a standard boundary case. He'd always told his team to screen for distractions. His hands clenched. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Claire nodded. I believe you. A beat of silence passed. Emma watched them both, absorbing every word. I don't want your money, Claire said. We're not here for that. Emma just wanted to see you. Once. She's been asking questions. And when I couldn't answer them all, she did what any smart kid would do. She found you. Emma smiled a little. Your TED Talk is on YouTube. It has 8.2 million views. Daniel choked on a laugh. I guess I didn't expect to be Googled by my daughter. Well, Emma said, you're not exactly low profile. Silence again. This time, heavier, more loaded. Daniel turned to Claire. Can we talk? Privately? Claire nodded. She kissed Emma's forehead. I'll be just outside. After she left, Daniel and Emma sat in an almost awkward quiet. I saw you at the gala, Emma said suddenly. His head whipped toward her. You were there. She nodded. I wanted to see what kind of man you were before I talked to you. He felt both exposed and oddly proud. And you seemed lonely. Daniel wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. Emma leaned back. I don't need anything from you. I just want to know who you are, and maybe tell you who I am. He listened as she spoke, about her school, her love for math, her obsession with astronomy, her dislike of peas. Every sentence chipped away at something hardened inside him. This wasn't just a child. This was his child. By the time Claire returned, Daniel had made a decision. I want to get to know her, he said quietly. If that's okay. Claire studied him. The man who'd once walked away, who now looked like he'd been hit by something bigger than guilt. She's not a trophy, Claire warned. She's not a press opportunity. I know. And if you start this, you can't walk away again. I won't. Claire nodded slowly. Then start small. Coffee. A walk. Don't buy her a car. Just be there. And for the first time in years, Daniel Ashford agreed to something without checking his calendar. He simply said, yes. Daniel couldn't sleep that night, not with the image of Emma's face etched into his mind like an unanswered question, her wide, uncertain eyes, the nervous way she held her mother's hand, and the quiet tension that hung between the three of them like an invisible curtain. He lay on the edge of his king-size bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence of the penthouse around him almost oppressive. His phone buzzed on a nightstand. A message from Thomas. Board meeting prep ready. Want a review in the morning? He ignored it. For the first time in years, his company didn't feel like the most pressing matter in his life. Claire's words kept replaying in his head. She's yours, Daniel. Emma is your daughter. He sat up abruptly, raking his hands through his hair. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, but they offered no clarity, just a glittering reminder of the world he had built, without ever knowing he had a child. The next morning, Daniel didn't go to the office. Instead, he stood in his closet, staring at the rows of tailored suits, unsure what kind of man he needed to be today. A CO? A father? A stranger trying to atone for a decade of absence? He chose jeans and a dark sweater. Something simple, approachable. He didn't want to tower over a child in power suits and silk ties. When he arrived at Claire's apartment, he hesitated outside the door. The building was modest, clean, in a safe neighborhood, nothing like the life he lived. He rang the bell and waited, nerves gnawing at his composure. Claire opened the door, and for a second, they just looked at each other. She seemed different in the morning light, not the guarded, tired woman from yesterday, but someone determined. Hi, he said. She stepped aside. She's getting ready for school. I didn't tell her you were coming. He stepped inside and noticed the space was small but warm. Photographs lined the shelves. Emma at the beach in a school play, blowing out candles on a birthday cake. His heart clenched with every snapshot. Claire offered him coffee, which he declined. He sat stiffly on the couch, feeling like a trespasser in a life he never knew existed. Emma came out, her small backpack slung over one shoulder. She paused when she saw him. Claire stepped forward. "Emma, this is Daniel." Emma tilted her head, curious but cautious. "The man from yesterday?" Daniel stood. "Yes, I wanted to see you again, if that's okay." Emma looked at Claire, who nodded gently. "Okay," Emma said softly, walking toward him. They stood a foot apart. Daniel crouched down to her eye level. "You like science, right?" "Claire told me." Emma's eyes brightened slightly. "Yeah, I want to build a rocket someday." Daniel smiled. "I always wanted to be an astronaut when I was your age." She giggled. "You don't look like an astronaut." He laughed too. It was awkward, unfamiliar, but something in her voice made his chest feel lighter. Claire watched them, arms crossed, cautious but not hostile. She wasn't sure what to expect from Daniel. 15 hours ago, he didn't know Emma existed. Now he was here, sitting on her worn couch, trying to learn about the daughter he never knew. "Do you want to walk her to school?" Claire asked, testing him. He looked surprised but nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that. If it's okay with you, Emma." Emma hesitated. Then she handed him her backpack. "Only if you can carry this." Daniel chuckled, slinging it over his shoulder. It was pink with glittery stars, a far cry from his usual leather briefcase. The walk to school was filled with questions. "What's your favorite color? Do you like dogs? Have you ever ridden a roller coaster?" Emma didn't hold back, and Daniel answered every question honestly. When they arrived at the school gates, Emma turned to him. "You coming tomorrow?" "If you want me to," he said. She smiled. "Okay." She ran off to join her classmates. Daniel stood there, watching her go, feeling something bloom inside him. A mix of joy, regret, and a fierce protectiveness he couldn't quite name. Claire stood beside him. "She doesn't open up to people easily. I'll earn it, however long it takes." She nodded, her face unreadable. "We'll see." The next few days followed a rhythm. Daniel walked Emma to school every morning. He learned about her favorite books, the names of her friends, and how much she hated math. She asked him about his office, his car, and whether he knew any celebrities. He didn't, but he promised to introduce her to his assistant, who used to work for a fashion magazine. That got a big smile. Claire remained wary. She didn't trust easily, and Daniel understood that. He had missed a decade of birthdays, doctor visits, and bedtime stories. 1 week of school walks wouldn't make up for that. One evening, as he was about to leave their apartment, Emma tugged his sleeve. "You want to come to my science fair next week?" He knelt down. "I'd be honored." "Cool. I'm building a volcano. Can I help?" She considered it. "Maybe, but you can't make it explode too big." "Deal." After she went to her room, Daniel turned to Claire. "Thank you for letting me in, even a little." Claire crossed her arms. "I'm not doing this for you, Daniel. I'm doing it for her." "I know, and I won't let her down. Not again." She looked at him for a long moment. "We'll see." Back at his penthouse, Daniel sat in the dark, thinking. He had never imagined his life with a child. His days were filled with deals, meetings, and the hum of power. But now there was a little girl with big dreams, an even bigger heart, who had cracked open something inside him. He wanted to be better, not just for her, but because of her. The following Saturday, he invited Claire and Emma to lunch. Not at a 5-star restaurant, but at a small Italian place he remembered from years ago. It had crayons on the table and the best spaghetti in the city. Emma drew rockets while Daniel asked Claire about her work. She was a speech therapist now, helping children with language delays. He was impressed genuinely. "You always wanted to help people," he said. "And you always wanted to conquer the world," she replied. "Guess we both got what we wanted." "Not everything," she said quietly, watching Emma color. That night, he drove them home. As they walked up the stairs, Claire paused. "She likes you." "I like her too, more than I can explain." "Good. Don't screw it up." He smiled. "I won't." But as he drove away, a pit formed in his stomach. Because wanting to be a father and actually being one were two very different things. And Daniel Ashford had never been good at things he couldn't control. Daniel arrived at the science fair 15 minutes early, nervously clutching a small bouquet of wildflowers he'd picked up along the way. He had never been to a school event before, never waited on wooden bleachers, or held his breath while a child stepped onto a stage. But here he was, scanning the colorful posters and cardboard displays for one particular name, Emma Carter. The gymnasium smelled of glue sticks, crayons, and excitement. Tables lined the space, each showcasing a student's creation: volcanoes, solar systems, handmade robots, and papier-mâché brains. Parents bustled about with cameras and coffee cups. Daniel fell out of place in his neatly pressed shirt, but he didn't care. All that mattered was seeing Emma's face light up when she spotted him. And then she did. "Daniel," she waved, her ponytail bouncing as she ran toward him. "You came." He crouched down and handed her the flowers. "Of course I came. I wouldn't miss it for anything." Emma grinned, eyes sparkling as she sniffed the flowers. "Mom says you're fancy, but these are perfect." Claire approached from behind the volcano table, a clipboard in hand. She wore jeans and blazer, her hair tied back, her smile cautious but not cold. "You're early," she noted. Daniel nodded. "Couldn't help it." Claire looked down at Emma. "Why don't you show him your project?" Emma eagerly dragged Daniel to her display. It wasn't the biggest or flashiest project, but it was meticulously built. Her volcano sat on a papier-mâché landscape, painted in browns and reds. The sign above it read, "Lava Logic, Why Volcanoes Erupt," and beneath it were diagrams, labels, and fun facts written in colorful marker. I helped her label the tectonic plates. Claire sat quietly beside him. Daniel studied the project. "This is amazing." Emma beamed. "I even made it erupt." She poured baking soda and vinegar into the crater, and the volcano fizzed up with red foam. A few nearby parents clapped. Daniel laughed. "That's incredible." Claire smiled faintly. "She's been working on it every day." Emma looked up at him. "Will you stay the whole time?" Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Absolutely." She giggled and skipped back to her table to greet the judges. Daniel watched her with something close to awe. She was so full of life, so curious and determined. It stunned him how much he'd missed, and how quickly she was becoming the center of his world. "You really want this, don't you?" Claire said, not looking at him. "I do," he answered softly. "I want to be there. For all of it." She crossed her arms. "It's not just school fairs and science projects. It's late-night fevers, bad dreams, braces, fights with friends. It's messy. I'm not afraid of messy." Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's because you've never had to clean it up." Daniel let out a breath. "Then maybe it's time I learned." They stood in silence, watching Emma explain her volcano to a curious teacher. Claire finally said, "She's happier when you're around." "That's new." Daniel's voice dropped. "She deserves to be happy, even if it takes me the rest of my life to make up for the time I wasn't there." After the fair, Daniel took them out for ice cream. Emma insisted on rainbow sprinkles. Claire got coffee-flavored. Daniel ordered vanilla. He didn't even like ice cream, but it felt right to join them. They sat on a bench outside the parlor. Emma leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. "I wish you were around sooner," she mumbled. Daniel swallowed hard. "Me too, sweetheart." Claire didn't say anything, but she didn't pull Emma away either. The next week, Daniel rearranged his schedule so he could pick Emma up from school twice. His assistant, Rachel, was baffled. "Are you canceling a call with Zurich to go to a PTA meeting?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "You can reschedule. This is more important." Rachel stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Should I be worried?" "Probably," he said, grabbing his coat. He arrived just as Emma came out, her backpack bouncing. "You're early," she exclaimed. "I wanted to surprise you." They stopped for hot chocolate on the walk home. Emma talked about a book she was reading. Daniel listened intently, nodding, asking questions. It was a rhythm he was starting to crave. That night, Claire invited him in for dinner. She cooked pasta. It was the first time they'd share a meal since before Emma was born. After Emma went to bed, Claire poured them each a glass of wine. "She's getting attached," she said. So don't screw this up. I won't. Claire studied him. You look different, not just the casual clothes. You seem present. I feel it too, Daniel admitted. Like I've been chasing the wrong things for a long time. She looked down at her glass. You missed a lot. I know, and it kills me. Claire's voice was soft. She used to ask about her dad. I never lied. I just said he didn't know about her. Daniel clenched his jaw. I wish you'd told me. I wish I had too. But I was scared. And angry. You left, Daniel. You made choices I couldn't undo. He nodded. And I'm trying to fix that now. She looked at him. Really looked. Then keep showing up. That's all I ask. Over the next few weeks, Daniel did just that. He picked Emma up, helped her with homework, even attended a weekend dance recital. Claire watched from the wings, surprised by how natural he was becoming. One night, as they all watched a movie, Emma fell asleep with her head in Daniel's lap. He didn't move, afraid to wake her. She trusts you, Claire whispered. He nodded, emotion thick in his throat. After Emma was tucked into bed, Claire lingered at the door. You know, she said, if you keep this up, she's going to start thinking of you as a real dad. Daniel met her eyes. That's exactly what I want. Daniel had never thought of himself as a man easily rattled, but sitting in the back seat of his private car outside the Carter house, he realized how much had changed. His phone buzzed with emails. His assistant had left 3 voicemails, and a Swiss investor was demanding a revised proposal by morning. Yet all he could think about was whether Emma had remembered to bring her sweater to school. He checked the dashboard clock again. 3:05 p.m. The bell should have rung by now. Moments later, Emma came skipping down the sidewalk, her backpack bouncing and pigtail swinging. She spotted the car and waved, grinning. Daniel stepped out, ignoring the looks from other parents. He opened the door for her like she was royalty. Hey, superstar, he said. You're early. Couldn't wait to see you. Emma slid into the back seat. Can we get boba today? He laughed. Of course. As the driver pulled away, Daniel noticed Claire standing a few feet back, watching them. She offered a tight wave. He returned it. Their dynamic was slowly shifting. Tentative trust, laced with the wariness of 2 people who'd once meant the world to each other, but now navigated cautiously around shared wounds. Back at the penthouse, Emma explored the living room like it was a museum. You live here? She asked wide-eyed. I do now. It's huge and shiny. Daniel knelt beside her. You can come any time. I want you to feel at home here. Emma beamed. Can I see your office? He led her down the hallway, past modern art and sleek furniture, to a glass-walled room filled with screens, charts, and 2 large whiteboards. Emma stared. Whoa, you do science too. He smiled. Something like that. He picked up a dry erase marker. Want to help me build an empire? She giggled. Only if I get to name it. That evening, Claire called. She didn't forget her sweater, by the way. Daniel laughed. I know. I just panicked. Claire hesitated. I appreciate you being consistent, but she's getting attached fast. I am too. She asked me today if she could have 2 homes. Daniel's heart squeezed. And you said? I told her home is where the people who love you are. He swallowed. Smart answer. There was silence. She's never had a dad. She doesn't know what it's supposed to feel like. Don't promise more than you can give. I'm not going anywhere, Claire. She didn't respond immediately. I hope not. The next morning, Daniel arrived late to the board meeting. The room fell silent as he entered. Nice of you to join us, said Martin Graves, the oldest and most vocal board member. Daniel nodded. Apologies. Family obligation. Whispers circled the table. Daniel, we've noticed a shift in your focus, Martin continued. This firm thrives on precision, on clarity. You've missed 5 strategy calls in the last 2 weeks. I've still delivered every result, Daniel countered. But your time allocation is being reevaluated, Daniel interrupted. My daughter is part of my life now. I won't apologize for that. A few younger board members exchanged surprised looks. Martin raised an eyebrow. Let's hope your priorities don't interfere with performance. They won't, Daniel said firmly. After the meeting, Rachel pulled him aside. They're watching you. I know. Be careful. They like the version of you that never sleeps and doesn't have a soul. He smiled. That guy's still around. He just reads bedtime stories now. Claire and Daniel began alternating weekends. Emma adapted faster than expected, falling into a rhythm that included Sunday pancakes with Daniel and homework nights with Claire. One Saturday, Daniel took Emma to a park. They climbed ropes, raced across balance beams, and shared cotton candy. As they rested on a bench, Emma asked, "Did you love Mom when I was born?" Daniel blinked. "Yes, very much. Why didn't you stay with us?" He took a breath. "Because I didn't know about you. And by the time I did, I had already made some big mistakes." Emma was quiet, "But I'm trying to fix them now." She leaned her head against his arm. "I'm glad you're here." He kissed the top of her head. "Me too." One night, Claire showed up at Daniel's door, eyes red. "I need to talk." He let her in. Emma was asleep in the guest room. Claire sat heavily. "My job's being cut. Budget restructuring. I don't know how I'll keep the apartment." Daniel didn't hesitate. "I'll help." "No, that's not why I came." "Claire, you don't have to do this alone." She rubbed her temples. I'm scared. Everything's changing so fast." He reached for her hand. "We're in this together now, whether you like it or not." She gave him a tired smile. "I'm starting to like it." Late that night, Daniel stood at Emma's door, watching her sleep. He whispered, "You're the best thing I never knew I needed." From behind him, Claire said, "You're doing good." He turned. "I have a lot to make up for." Claire stepped beside him. "Maybe, but you're trying. That's more than most." Daniel took her hand. For once, it didn't feel like they were walking separate paths. It felt like the beginning of something they might build together. The city skyline was starting to blur into darkness as Daniel sat at his desk, tapping the end of his pen against a blank page. Numbers usually calmed him. Strategy was his playground. But tonight, he couldn't focus. His mind was stuck on Claire's face the night before, when she confided about her job being cut. He had never seen her look so vulnerable. Not even during court battles or when she'd first told him about Emma. The weight she carried now wasn't just financial. It was fear of failing as a mother, of losing what little stability she'd managed to rebuild. Daniel had built empires, resurrected companies from near collapse, and yet he felt helpless when it came to fixing the delicate cracks in Claire's world. Money wasn't the issue. It was trust. He couldn't throw a solution at her and expect it to be received as love. Not after everything. He glanced over at the door to Emma's room. She was sleeping over again this weekend. She had left her stuffed unicorn on the kitchen counter, forgotten in her excitement about their movie night. He smiled and stood to return it to her room. But just as he reached the hallway, the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Whitaker, there's a visitor here asking for you," the concierge announced. "At this hour?" Daniel frowned. "Name?" "She says it's urgent. Ms. Vanessa Hayes." Daniel froze. The name struck him like a slap. "Vanessa. Send her up," he said quietly. Moments later, the elevator chimed and the doors slid open. Vanessa Hayes stepped into the penthouse, looking almost exactly as he remembered, sleek, polished, the kind of woman who commanded rooms without raising her voice. "Vanessa," he said cautiously. "Daniel," she greeted, her eyes scanning the space. "Still living like a Bond villain, I see." He managed a tight smile. "What are you doing here?" "I heard through mutual contacts that you're a father now," she said, stepping closer. "Thought I'd offer congratulations in person." Daniel's jaw tightened. "This isn't social hour." "No," she agreed. "It's not. I'm here because you and I have unfinished business." He crossed his arms. "That business ended years ago." Vanessa's eyes flickered. "Not if I have documents that say otherwise." Daniel's heart skipped. "What are you talking about?" She reached into her handbag and pulled out a thick envelope. "Place it on the table. You want to read that," she said. He opened it, his eyes scanning page after page. Contracts, internal memos, stock transfer documents, all pointing toward a questionable deal he'd signed off on during his last year as CEO of Whitaker Holdings. A deal she had helped broker, and one that had quietly gone south. "This was sealed," he whispered. "Confidential. We both signed NDAs. "Things change, Daniel." Her voice was sharp. "I need capital, and I have leverage. You think I care about your little comeback story? Your child? Your redemption arc?" Daniel's blood boiled. "Are you blackmailing me?" Vanessa smiled, calling negotiation. Before he could respond, a soft voice broke the tension. "Dad." Emma stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. Daniel turned instantly. "Hey, sweetheart, you should be in bed." She glanced at Vanessa, her brow furrowed. "Who's that?" Vanessa's gaze softened just slightly. "I'm an old friend of your dad's." Daniel walked Emma back to her room. "Just give me a moment, okay?" She nodded, casting one more wary glance toward Vanessa before disappearing behind her door. When Daniel returned, Vanessa was already slipping on her coat. "You have until Friday," she said. "Then I go public." She left without another word. The next morning, Claire picked up Emma early. Daniel didn't tell her about Vanessa. Not yet. He wasn't ready. But the encounter left a tremor running through every moment of his day. He found himself scrolling through old emails, looking for any sign of where Vanessa's threats could lead. If she leaked the documents, not only would it tarnish his reputation, it might trigger a formal investigation, his company, his board seat, even custody negotiations. He couldn't afford that. Meanwhile, Claire had her own bombshell brewing. While she waited for Emma at dance class, her phone buzzed. "Claire, this is Ellen Monroe from the Global Women's Initiative." Claire sat up straighter. "Yes, of course. I remember. We have an opening in our policy division. It's a hybrid position, strategic planning with field work overseas. Your name came up." Claire blinked. "Overseas?" "Yes. Tokyo for at least 6 months. Then possibly Brussels." Her mouth went dry. "That's unexpected." "You don't have to answer now, but we're looking to fill the role quickly." Claire thanked her and ended the call, her head spinning. It was everything she'd once dreamed of. Travel, impact, global policy work. But what would that mean for Emma? For Daniel? And why of all times now? That night, she and Daniel met at a quiet restaurant, halfway between their homes. Emma was with a sitter. Claire stirred her tea. "Something's off." Daniel looked up. "What do you mean?" You're tense. Avoiding eye contact." He sighed. "I had a visitor. Someone from the past." Claire's jaw tightened. "Who?" "Vanessa Hayes." Claire paled. "The Vanessa Hayes?" "She's threatening to go public with old documents from a failed deal. It's blackmail. Could affect Emma? If she follows through, yes." Claire leaned back. "I got a call today, too. A job offer. In Tokyo." Daniel froze. "What?" Claire nodded. "It's everything I used to want, but it would mean leaving, uprooting everything." Silence fell between them like a curtain. "We're building something here," Daniel said finally. "A life, a family." "I know," Claire whispered. "That's what makes this so hard." They sat in silence, the weight of their choices pressing down. Outside, the world kept moving. Inside, time stood still. The following day, Emma sensed a shift. At school pickup, she asked, "Are you mad at Mom?" "No," Daniel said, surprised. "Why?" She looked sad. "And you looked like you were hiding something." He kneeled down. "Hey, listen to me. No one's mad. Grown-up stuff gets complicated sometimes. But we both love you more than anything." She hugged him tightly. "Promise you won't go away?" "I promise." He hoped it wasn't a lie. By Friday, Daniel had made a decision. He wouldn't be threatened. He called a lawyer and prepared a full disclosure document. If Vanessa wanted to burn things down, she had to do it knowing he wasn't afraid anymore. Claire, meanwhile, stood at the airport with the offer letter in her hand. Boarding began in 20 minutes. She looked at her phone. A photo of Emma smiling filled the screen. Then She turned around and walked away from the gate. That night, Daniel opened his door to find Claire standing there, suitcase in hand. "I couldn't do it," she said. He pulled her into an embrace. And just like that, the past lost its grip. Daniel stood at the window of his penthouse, watching the rain streak the glass like falling threads of memory. Claire was asleep in the guest room with Emma tucked beside her, their breathing soft and steady. He hadn't slept. His mind replayed Vanessa's visit, the look on Emma's face when she saw her, and the shadow that now threatened everything. He checked his phone. No new messages from Vanessa, but he knew silence from her wasn't peace. It was preparation. Downstairs, the board of Whitaker Holdings was already stirring. Rumors of Daniel's potential scandal had leaked. Not the details yet, but enough to raise concern. Martin Graves had called twice that morning. Rachel had texted 5 times in all caps. The empire he had rebuilt with precision, and steel nerves was cracking at the foundation, all because of a decision made in a different life, with a different heart. Claire walked into the kitchen wrapped in a robe, hair messy, eyes puffy. "You didn't sleep?" she said. Daniel handed her a mug of coffee. Didn't want to miss another fire. She sipped, then leaned against the counter. "I've been thinking." He looked at her. "I don't regret walking away from that flight. But I need to know you're fighting for this too. Not just reacting. Not just surviving." Daniel stepped closer. "Claire, I'm all in. For you. For Emma. I'm done living in compartments. This is my life now." She nodded, slowly. "Then let's clean it up." The next day, Daniel and his attorney met with the Internal Ethics Board of Whitaker Holdings. The room was sterile, the air thick with suspicion. "I'm submitting full disclosure on my past dealings with Vanessa Hayes," Daniel began, voice even, "including copies of all contracts, memos, and NDAs. Martin Graves narrowed his eyes. "Why now?" "Because she's threatening to weaponize the truth, and I'd rather own it than hide from it." There were murmurs. Rachel watched him carefully. "What about your seat on the board?" someone asked. Daniel hesitated. "If my presence compromises the company, I'll step back. But I won't run." He walked out of that room with a mixture of dread and clarity. Claire met him outside the building. "You did the right thing," she said. "Let's hope the board agrees." Meanwhile, Emma had started asking questions. Real ones. "Why did Mommy almost leave?" she asked one night as Daniel tucked her in. He sat beside her. "Because she had a big job offer. In another country." Emma frowned. "And she stayed because of me?" "In part, yes, but also because she loves you. And maybe even because she loves me too." Emma smiled sleepily. "I hope she loves you. You make her laugh more now." Daniel laughed softly. "That's a good sign." The next week, Claire got a second call from Ellen Monroe. "We still have that spot open," Ellen said. "But if it's not the right time, I understand." Claire thought for a long moment. Is there a remote alternative? Consulting or domestic initiatives? There was a pause. "I'll see what I can do." By Friday, a formal vote had been taken at Whitaker Holdings. The board agreed not to pursue disciplinary action against Daniel. The documents he submitted checked out. Vanessa, now exposed, lost her leverage. Rachel met him afterward. "I vouch for you," she said, "because you didn't lie. That counts for something in this business." Daniel offered a tired smile. "Thanks for believing I could change." She smirked. "Let's not go that far." At home, Claire had set the table. Real plates, candles, a homemade pasta dish that filled the room with warmth. Emma raced to Daniel when he walked in. "Daddy, guess what?" "What?" "Mommy made dinner that didn't burn." Claire laughed from the kitchen, only slightly charred. They ate together, talked, laughed. It felt normal. So heartbreakingly normal Daniel found himself gripping his fork too tight, as if afraid the moment would vanish. After Emma went to bed, he and Claire sat on the couch, a bottle of wine open between them. "You ever think we could have done this differently?" Claire asked. Daniel exhaled. "All the time." She took a sip. "Maybe we weren't ready then, but we are now." He looked at her. "I think we are." They didn't need to say anything else. The next morning, Claire got an email from Ellen. A consulting role just opened in D.C. 3 days a week. Competitive pay. Flexible schedule. Interested? She stared at the screen, then looked over at Daniel and Emma making pancakes. Her fingers hovered over the keys. Then she typed, "Let's talk," and hit send. Daniel woke to the smell of pancakes and laughter. Emma's giggles bounced off the high ceilings of the penthouse, colliding with the low hum of morning jazz from the kitchen. For the first time in weeks, there wasn't a stone lodged in his chest. He followed the sound, finding Claire in his oversized apron, flipping pancakes with theatrical flair, while Emma clapped. "Morning, sleepyhead," Claire said, without looking. "We're celebrating." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Celebrating what?" Emma beamed. "Mommy got a job, but she still gets to stay here with us." Claire finally turned, her eyes catching his. "It's the D.C. consulting role. 3 days a week. From home half the time. Emma can still go to school here. We get stability, and I don't have to give up everything." Daniel stepped forward, kissed her temple, and whispered, "I'm proud of you." Claire smiled. "And you? You look like a man who actually slept." "I did. For once, I don't feel like I'm chasing something I'll never catch." They sat at the kitchen table, a mess of syrup and scrambled eggs between them. The past few weeks suddenly feeling less like war and more like a hard-fought truce. But outside their glass tower, the world hadn't forgotten them. Vanessa, though silenced for now, had stirred media interest. The tabloids sniffed the story, and within days, headlines began to swirl. Whitaker billionaire's hidden family, and Claire Monroe, the woman behind the powerhouse. Daniel received a call from Rachel. "You need to get ahead of this, Dan, before they turn it into a scandal. Transparency, remember?" So, reluctantly, Daniel agreed to an exclusive interview with Business Weekly. It was the first time in his career that the article wouldn't be about quarterly earnings or market expansion, but about him. The shoot took place in their penthouse. Emma sat on Daniel's lap, her curls wild, clutching a plush giraffe. Claire wore soft beige and denim, polished but real. The journalist, an older woman named Marion with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, asked questions that peeled back layers Daniel hadn't touched in years. "What changed for you this year, Mr. Whitaker?" He looked at Claire, then at Emma. "Everything," he said. Marion smiled gently. "Do you regret how long it took?" "Yes, but maybe it had to take that long for me to understand what matters." Claire reached for his hand under the table. The article dropped a week later. The man who had everything, until he found what he'd lost. It went viral, not because of scandal, but because of the authenticity. Daniel wasn't painted as a villain or a victim, but a man who had failed and then tried to rebuild. The response was overwhelming. Emails from CEOs, single mothers, kids who never knew their fathers. For the first time in his life, Daniel Whitaker was admired not for what he had, but for who he was trying to become. In the meantime, Claire's new consulting job began to bloom. Her insight into international relations and organizational strategy made waves at the agency. Ella Monroe told her after the first week, "I wish we could clone you." She was invited to contribute to a global policy white paper on women-led diplomacy initiatives. Claire found herself consulting with ambassadors and former senators, her name suddenly carrying the weight it once did. And more. At home, she juggled meetings and school pickups with a kind of graceful chaos. Daniel learned how to cook grilled cheese without burning it. Emma corrected his technique. They made it work. Not perfectly, but earnestly. Emma started drawing pictures of the three of them holding hands. Her teacher sent one home in a folder with a note. "Emma says this is her forever family." Claire cried for 15 minutes. One Sunday afternoon, they took a trip to the countryside. No phones, no laptops. Just the three of them, a picnic, and a borrowed golden retriever named Baxter. As they lay on a blanket, watching clouds, Emma between them, Daniel whispered, "I've been thinking." Claire turned toward him. "That always means something big. I want to propose. Properly this time. Not out of guilt, not out of responsibility, but love, real love." Claire blinked. "Are you asking me right now?" No, he smiled. But I'm warning you. It's coming. She kissed his cheek. Then I'll warn you. I'll probably say yes. They stayed out until the sun dipped low. Emma collected wildflowers. Baxter chased butterflies. And Daniel built a small bonfire that smoked too much, but warmed them all. That night, back home, Emma fell asleep between them on the couch. Daniel whispered, I didn't know peace could feel like this. Claire leaned her head on his shoulder. It's because we earned it. But just as they began to settle, an unexpected envelope arrived at their door. It was addressed to Emma. Inside, a single letter, neatly handwritten. Dear Emma, you don't know me, but I know you. I think about you every day. One day, if your mommy and daddy are okay with it, I'd like to meet you. Love, your real grandfather. Claire's hand shook as she read it. Daniel took the letter, expression hardening. Emma was in her room, humming to herself. Claire whispered, We never told him. How'd he find us? Daniel exhaled. Looks like the past isn't done with us yet. That night, neither of them slept. They sat at the kitchen table, the letter between them, the weight of their shared history suddenly tangible again. We need to talk to a lawyer, Claire said. I want to protect her. We will, Daniel said, and I'll find out who helped him find us. Someone must have leaked it. Do you think he's dangerous? Daniel looked toward Emma's closed door. He's persistent. That's dangerous enough. Claire squeezed his hand. We've come too far to let him take this from us. The letter from Emma's biological grandfather sat on the kitchen table like a silent threat. Morning light filtered to the penthouse windows, illuminating its neat, unassuming handwriting. It was the kind of letter that changed everything, not because of what it said, but because of what it implied. Claire stared at it while sipping her now-cold coffee, her other hand resting protectively on the envelope. Daniel was pacing, still in sweatpants, hair tousled, phone clutched in his hand but unused. Every time he went to call their lawyer, he hesitated. They both knew this wasn't going to be simple. We should tell her, Claire said finally. Daniel stopped pacing. She's just a kid, Claire. This will confuse her, scare her. What will scare her more is learning later that we hid it from her. Emma's not fragile, Daniel. She deserved the truth. Maybe not the whole truth, but she deserves something. Daniel rubbed his temples. Let me make some calls first. Find out if this is even legal. Claire nodded. Fine, but don't wait too long. Over the next 48 hours, Daniel turned into a storm. He hired 2 private investigators. One to look into who leaked their location, the other to dig into the man who signed the letter simply. Charles Benton. Claire, meanwhile, focused on Emma. Her daughter had become more curious lately, more emotionally aware. The timing couldn't be worse. The little girl who had once accepted bedtime stories without question now wanted to know why her hair was colorier than her classmates, why she looked different in family photos, and why she didn't remember anything before age 5. Claire had always answered with gentle honesty. But now, even gentle might not be enough. That Friday evening, Claire sat with Emma on her bed. The room was soft-lit, her walls covered with hand-drawn art of suns and rocket ships. Sweetheart, Claire began, gently brushing Emma's hair. You got a letter from someone who says he's your biological grandfather. Emma blinked. You mean like your daddy? Claire smiled faintly. No, he's not my daddy. He's from your biological father's side. Emma looked confused. But daddy is my daddy. Yes, Daniel is your daddy in every way that matters. This man, he helped make you a long time ago, but he wasn't part of your life. Not really. Emma was quiet. Then she asked, Does he want to be part of it now? Claire swallowed. He says he wants to meet you, but only if we say it's okay. Emma picked at a frayed thread on her pajama sleeve. Will you be there? If I meet him... Claire nodded. Always. Then, maybe, if it helps me understand more. Daniel sat in the living room, listening to the half-closed door. He clenched his fists. Emma was brave, strong, but he hated that she even had to face this. The next morning, Daniel met with their lawyer, Mitchell Adams, A hard-faced man with a talent for unraveling legal knots. Technically, Mitchell said, flipping through documents, the man has no rights. Emma's legal guardian is Claire. Full custody. No visitation order exists. Unless he files something, you don't have to respond. Daniel frowned. What if he does file something? Tries to claim rights. Mitchell closed the folder. Then we bury him in paperwork and use every tool in the system. This isn't about legality. This is about leverage. If he pushes, we push harder. Daniel left the office reassured. But deep inside, a knot still sat in his gut. Meanwhile, Claire had begun to receive strange messages. First, an email from a former co-worker she hadn't spoken to in years. Charles Benton asked me about you. Said you had something that belonged to him. What's going on, Claire? Then a package arrived. No return address. Inside was an old photo. Claire younger, pregnant, taken from a distance. A handwritten note read, "You can't erase the past." Claire showed Daniel. His face darkened. He's trying to rattle you. It's working. Daniel picked up the photo, stared at it. Not anymore. We're going to confront him. Claire's eyes widened. What? No, that's what he wants. Attention. Proximity. Exactly. We control the setting. We control the terms. He wants a meeting? He gets one. With our lawyer present. In public. With cameras if we have to. The meeting was arranged in a neutral law office. Claire wore gray slacks and a navy blazer. Daniel stood beside her, hand in hers. When Charles Benton entered, Emma was not there. That had been non-negotiable. He was tall, gray-haired, and walked a cane. But his eyes were sharp. Too sharp. "Claire," he said, smiling. "You look just like her." Claire didn't smile. "You have 5 minutes. Say what you need to say." Charles looked at Daniel. "You must be the husband. Or is it the bodyguard?" Daniel didn't react. Charles continued. "I came to apologize. For everything. I never got to meet my son. But I want to meet my granddaughter." Claire's voice was steady. "You lost your chance decades ago. Emma isn't a prize to be won. She's a person. One we love deeply. We won't let you hurt her." Charles leaned back. "You think you can keep her from me?" Daniel stepped forward. "Watch us." Mitchell interrupted. "This meeting is over." After that, things escalated. Charles filed for grandparent visitation rights in family court. It made the news. Again, Claire and Daniel issued a joint statement. Asterisk, Emma's well-being is our only priority. We will protect her with every legal, emotional, and moral resource we have. Emma, meanwhile, began to act out. Quietly, drawing storm clouds, asking to sleep in their bed again, questioning everything. Claire sat with her one night, whispering, "No matter what happens, you are loved. Nothing can change that." Emma asked, "Is he a bad man?" Claire hesitated. "He's a complicated man. But your safety and happiness come first. Always." Then one evening, Emma disappeared. They found her hours later, sitting outside on the building's rooftop terrace, staring at the stars. She had snuck past the nanny, looking for answers. "I just wanted to see if the stars could tell me where I belong," she said softly. Daniel knelt beside her. "You belong right here. With us. Always." She leaned into him. "Okay, then I want to fight, too. I want to be brave." Claire, standing behind them, wiped away tears. The next court date loomed. But they weren't alone. Dozens of character letters poured in. Teachers, neighbors, even former employees of Daniel's company, all attesting to the kind of parents Daniel and Claire were. They stood together as a family, ready for the battle. Whatever storm was coming, they would face it, together. The morning of the first court hearing dawned gray and cold, as though the sky itself had aligned with the tension gripping Daniel and Claire's penthouse. Emma sat at the breakfast bar, still in her pajamas, pushing around scrambled eggs with her fork. She hadn't eaten much in days. Claire leaned against the kitchen island, watching her daughter with quiet concern. "You don't have to come to court, sweetheart." "I know," Emma whispered, "but I kind of want to, just to see, just to know." Daniel exchanged a glance with Claire. They had already arranged for a child advocate and therapist to meet with Emma outside of court, far away from the chaos. But Emma's curiosity was growing stronger than her fear. "Maybe next time," Daniel said gently. "Today, let us go for you." Emma didn't argue. The courthouse was an old building, draped in columns and solemn silence. Inside the courtroom, fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above rows of wooden benches. Claire sat stiffly beside Daniel at the petitioner's table, their lawyer Mitchell Adams organizing files with surgical precision. Across the aisle, Charles Benton sat with his own attorney, a sleek, confident woman named Rena Valdez, known for her aggressive family law tactics. Judge Holloway entered promptly at 9 a.m., an older woman with keen eyes and a reputation for fairness. "Mr. Benton," she said after the initial introductions, "you're requesting visitation rights under New York's grandparent statute. Are you asserting a pre-existing relationship with the child?" Charles stood slowly. "No, Your Honor, but I believe it is in Emma's best interest to know her blood, to know her legacy." Daniel resisted the urge to scoff. Mitchell rose calmly. "Your Honor, my clients, Claire and Daniel Carter, have provided Emma with a stable, nurturing home. There is no precedent of involvement from Mr. Benton. His sudden interest coincides suspiciously with recent media attention and an inheritance matter involving the Benton estate. We believe this is less about love and more about legacy and control." Judge Holloway nodded slowly, scribbling notes. "We will proceed with evidence presentations next week. In the meantime, I am ordering a psychological evaluation of all involved parties and appointing a child psychologist to assess Emma's well-being." Charles smirked. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed like bees. Claire lowered her sunglasses and tightened her scarf. Daniel kept a firm arm around her as they pushed through the noise. The following week was a blur of interviews, documents, and emotional minefields. Emma was evaluated twice, once at home and once at the psychologist's office. She spoke carefully, but honestly. "I have a mommy and a daddy," she told the doctor. "They take care of me. But I have questions about before." The psychologist noted her maturity, her emotional resilience, but also her confusion. Meanwhile, Charles Benton released a statement to press, painting himself as a heartbroken grandfather simply seeking connection. It worked. Editorials appeared. Talk shows debated. Was blood thicker than love? Claire couldn't sleep. Daniel became more withdrawn. Their home, once filled with laughter, felt like a fortress under siege. One evening, Daniel received a call from an old colleague, a man who had once served as legal counsel to Benton's company. "You didn't hear it from me," the man said, voice low, "but Charles doesn't just want visitation. He wants control, guardianship. He believes Claire isn't fit because of her past. He's digging. Deep." Daniel's hands trembled as he hung up. He wanted Claire immediately. "He's going to try and destroy you," he said. Claire looked at him, her eyes full of sadness, not fear. "Let him try." Mitchell began gathering evidence. Every donation Claire had made, every promotion Daniel had awarded to female staff, letters from pediatricians, report cards, even Emma's artwork. At the second hearing, Mitchell presented a portrait. Emma's family was more than loving. It was thriving. Then Rena Valdez stood. "Your Honor," she said, "my client has obtained documents indicating that Miss Claire Davis, now Claire Carter, was once involved in a sealed criminal investigation during her early 20s. We request the court to unseal that file." Claire's heart stopped. Judge Holloway raised an eyebrow. "That is a serious request. What is the relevance?" "It speaks to her character, Your Honor." Mitchell stood. That case was sealed by federal order. It was a wrongful accusation tied to a fraud investigation she herself helped expose. Judge Holloway nodded. "We'll review in chambers. For now, let's stay on course." Claire gripped Daniel's hand under the table. "He really will do anything." Daniel squeezed back. "So will we." At home that night, Claire found Emma sitting in her art corner, drawing. "Is he going to win?" Emma asked. Claire kneeled. "Not if we can help it." Emma looked up. "Then I want to help too." Claire smiled sadly. You already are. The court-appointed advocate submitted her findings the following week. Her words were powerful. Emma Carter is a well-adjusted, emotionally stable, and intellectually curious child. Her bond with Claire and Daniel Carter is deep, loving, and secure. The sudden appearance of Charles Benton, while biologically significant, does not warrant disruption to the child's life. Judge Holloway reviewed the files, then issued a temporary ruling. Visitation denied. Pending final review. Claire cried when she read it. Daniel just held her, silent. But they knew it wasn't over. The courtroom was full, not with spectators, but with tension. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the hallway outside buzzed with reporters. The trial had become a spectacle, not just a legal interest, but of legacy, power, and the meaning of family. For Charles Benton, it was about honor, reputation, and bloodline. For Daniel and Claire, it was about protecting their daughter and the truth. Emma stayed home with Claire's closest friend, Alice, who had become like an aunt to her. She had kissed Claire's cheek before they left that morning and said, "Tell the judge I want to stay with you and Daddy." Claire carried that sentence like armor. Judge Holloway called the session to order at 9 a.m. sharp. She looked more serious than usual, her hair pulled back tighter, her robe immaculate. "Today, we will hear testimony regarding guardianship, character, and the best interests of the child." Rena Valdez, Charles Benton's attorney, called her first witness, a former household employee of Charles and Evelyn Benton. The woman spoke of structure, discipline, and heritage. "Mr. Benton believes in tradition," she said. "In legacy. He's old-fashioned, yes, but he cares deeply." Then she paused. "But he was never warm." Rena frowned. "Meaning, he provided. But I don't remember him ever hugging his son or his wife." The next witness was Charles himself. He entered the stand with the composure of a CEO and the sorrow of a grieving father. "I lost my son before I ever got to know his daughter," he said, voice gravelly. "This is not an attack. This is an attempt to reclaim family." He spoke of blood ties, legacy, and how Emma should not be denied her heritage. Rena pressed further. "Do you believe Claire Davis is a fit mother?" Charles hesitated. "I believe she is well-intentioned, but unstable. Her past is checkered, and her current partner is using her to elevate his public image." Daniel's jaw flexed. Mitchell Adams, their attorney, jotted something. "Do you believe Emma would be better served living with you?" "I believe she belongs where her family's values can shape her future." When cross-examined, Mitchell asked calmly, "Did you visit Emma once in the 7 years after your son's death?" "No." "Did you send her birthday cards? Asked to see her?" Charles stiffened. "No." "Then what changed, Mr. Benton?" Charles stared at Claire. She changed everything. Then Claire was called. She stood tall in a charcoal gray suit, her voice steady. She told her story, not in defense, but in truth. She talked about raising Emma, alone, about her fears, her mistakes, her victories. "Emma is my heart," she said. "And Daniel," he became her home. Rena pounced. "Mrs. Carter, you were involved in a criminal investigation at age 23. Fraud involving federal funds." Claire nodded. "I was the whistleblower. But you were briefly a suspect. I cooperated fully. I turned over evidence that led to multiple convictions. Still, it's a pattern." "No," Claire interrupted. "It's proof that I chose truth over comfort." Later, Judge Holloway would note that moment in her summary. Daniel took the stand last. He described the first time he met Emma, how she ran to him with eyes full of questions and hope. "I didn't know I had a daughter," he said, voice cracking. "But from the moment I found out, I wanted nothing more than to be her father." Rena raised an eyebrow. "You're a billionaire, Mr. Carter. This child will inherit great wealth. Isn't that convenient?" Daniel smiled sadly. "Emma doesn't care about my wealth. She cares that I remember her bedtime stories and that I show up to her ballet recitals." Rena tried again. "Do you think Claire is using Emma to anchor you emotionally?" Daniel's face hardened. "Claire saved Emma's life. And mine." Mitchell returned for redirect. "Mr. Carter, what do you think is best for your daughter? To be loved, to be safe, and to never feel like a pawn in someone else's legacy war." The trial lasted 6 hours. At the end, Judge Holloway said she would deliver her verdict in 48 hours. This court does not take the matter of guardianship lightly. What matters most is not genetics, but presence, not name, but nurture. They returned home exhausted. Emma ran into their arms, unaware of the storm that had passed through the courtroom. That evening, Daniel sat with her on the couch. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said. "Anything. Will I ever have to live somewhere else?" Daniel looked at Claire, then back to Emma. "No. No matter what, we're your home." Claire whispered from the kitchen. "We're your forever." Emma smiled, and for the first time in weeks, she slept soundly. The day of the verdict arrived, cloaked in gray skies and a cold drizzle that turned the courthouse steps slick and unforgiving. Daniel, Claire, and Emma arrived early, not because they had to, but because none of them could bear sitting at home waiting. Emma stayed behind with Alice again, this time more aware, more anxious. Claire held Daniel's hand tightly as they entered the courtroom. Neither of them spoke, but their silence was full of shared hope and fear. Judge Holloway entered at precisely 9 a.m. The room hushed. Her expression was unreadable, her robe a shield of impartiality. She opened a folder slowly, as if the weight of what she was about to say bore down on her hands. "This has not been an easy case," she began. "It is one of legacy versus love, of bloodline versus presence, of power versus protection. I have considered all testimonies, reviewed all evidence, and consulted with child development experts." Daniel held his breath. Claire's heart pounded. The best interest of the child must remain paramount. Not wealth, not tradition, not even biology. What matters most is the emotional, physical, and psychological safety of the child. She paused. Then, guardianship of Emma Benton shall remain with Claire Davis. Furthermore, Daniel Carter is granted full legal parental rights as Emma's father. The petition for custody by Mr. Charles Benton is hereby denied. The words hit like thunder and sunlight at once. Claire gasped. Daniel exhaled so deeply it was as if he'd been underwater. Mitchell Adams squeezed Daniel's shoulder with a small, satisfied nod. Charles Benton did not react. He simply sat, hands clasped, jaw tight, staring ahead. Judge Holloway continued. "This court acknowledges Mr. Benton's desire to connect with his granddaughter. Therefore, limited, supervised visitation may be arranged at the discretion of Ms. Davis and Mr. Carter, and with Emma's well-being as the guiding principle." It was more mercy than Claire had expected, but she would take it, on her terms. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed them. "Daniel, how do you feel about the court's decision?" "Claire, what would you say to Mr. Benton today?" They said nothing, just walked to their car, hands intertwined, shoulders aligned like twin pillars holding up something fragile but unbreakable. Inside the vehicle, Daniel finally let himself smile. "She's ours." Claire nodded, tears spilling over. Finally, when they arrived home, Emma came running down the hallway. "Did the judge say yes?" she cried. Daniel knelt, arms open. "Yes, sweetheart. You're staying with us. Always." Emma wrapped her arms around his neck. Claire joined them, the three of them forming a quiet circle on the living room floor. "Can we have pancakes to celebrate?" Emma asked. Daniel laughed through his tears. "We'll have chocolate chip pancakes every Saturday for the rest of your life." "Deal." That night, Claire tucked Emma into bed, brushing her hair back gently. "Do you know how brave you are?" she whispered. "I wasn't scared," Emma lied, eyes fluttering. "Even braver then." In the days that followed, their home felt different, not just because of the court ruling, but because of the peace it brought. No more fear of sudden knocks, of court summons, of being ripped apart by blood ties weaponized by pride. Daniel began making plans. Legal name changes, school records updates, a room makeover for Emma with her input on every color and piece of furniture. Claire returned to work part-time, Emma proudly wearing her mom's old ID badge on a lanyard around the house. They hosted a small dinner party to thank Mitchell Adams and a few close friends. Emma gave a toast, standing on a chair, holding a sparkling apple cider. "To my family," she said, "and to the people who made sure I get to stay where I belong." Daniel and Claire blinked back tears. But not everyone was ready to move on. 1 week after the verdict, Claire received an envelope. No return address, but the seal was unmistakably Benton. Inside was a letter. Short, formal, cold. I respect the court's decision. I do not agree with it. I will not interfere, but I will not forget. There was no signature, just an embossed initial CB. Claire read it twice, then tossed it into the fireplace. Emma never asked about her grandfather again, but Daniel and Claire remained open. When the time came, they'd explain everything, not as revenge or warning, but as truth, because truth, they had learned, is the most loving thing you can give a child. And love? Love had already done the impossible. It had won. The morning sun filtered through Emma's curtains, scattering golden patterns on her new lilac walls. She woke up to the smell of waffles and laughter, a far cry from the tension that had cloaked their lives for weeks. Downstairs, Daniel flipped pancakes while Claire teased him about his technique, and Emma twirled in her pajamas, her hair a bouncing halo around her shoulders. It felt like the beginning of something, and it was. Daniel had returned to work the day before, but something had shifted. His priorities were no longer driven by quarterly reports or stockholder expectations. His focus was sharper now, but it wasn't on business. It was on impact. One morning, Claire found him at the dining table, surrounded by documents and scribbled notes. "What are you plotting, Mr. Carter?" He looked up, eyes shining. Something different, something better. She raised an eyebrow. What if the Carter Foundation didn't just fund scholarships and tech incubators? What if we built family recovery programs? Legal aid for single parents? Education grants for children from fractured homes? Claire blinked. You want to shift the foundation's mission? I want to give back in a way that actually matters. Emma changed everything, Claire. So, did you? Meanwhile, Claire was offered promotion she never expected. Head of Outreach and Communications for a national nonprofit focused on child advocacy. The offer came after someone on the board saw her speak at a local parents' forum, unaware of her recent court battle. They want me to travel, lead campaigns, speak to lawmakers, she told Daniel one night, curling against him under their living room throw blanket. Do you want to do it? I think I do, but I also want to be here. With Emma, with you. Then we find a way to make both happen. You supported me when I didn't deserve it. It's my turn now. They kissed like teenagers, messy, urgent, thankful. But peace has a way of being fragile. One Thursday afternoon, Emma came home quieter than usual. Claire noticed immediately. Hey, love bug, everything okay? Emma nodded, but didn't meet her eyes. Over dinner, Daniel gently asked, School going all right? Emma poked at her mashed potatoes. A girl in class said I'm not really a Carter, that I was just adopted because you feel sorry for me. Silence fell. Claire reached for her daughter's hand. Emma, that's not true. Not even close. Daniel leaned in. You are our daughter. That girl doesn't understand. But she's right. I'm not like born yours. Daniel swallowed hard. You weren't born into my life, but you were born for it. I didn't know I needed you until I met you. Emma's lips trembled. Promise you won't ever leave? Never. You're stuck with me forever. That night, after Emma fell asleep between them, Claire whispered, We should talk to her more about this. Help her own her story before others try to write it for her. Daniel nodded. Let's start this weekend. Maybe even write her a book, her story in her words. That might actually be beautiful. Emma's story, the picture book they created together, became a household treasure. It told of a brave little girl, a mother who never gave up, and a father who found his way home. Illustrated by Emma, with stick figures and glitter stickers, it was imperfect and magical. She took it to school during show and tell. That day, no one questioned who she belonged to. Summer arrived. Claire accepted the new role, but negotiated remote work and regional leadership, so she could stay close. Daniel launched the Carter Family Initiative, drawing press not for its funding, but for its mission. People said he'd gone soft. He took it as a compliment. One evening, they all sat in the backyard watching fireflies. Mom, Dad, Yes, honey. Do you think the stars ever feel lonely? Claire smiled. Maybe, but they always shine brighter when they're together. Emma leaned her head on Daniel's shoulder. Then I'm glad I found my sky. Daniel kissed the top of her head. And we're glad we found our star. Summer's golden warmth lingered as the first signs of autumn crept in, red leaves brushing sidewalks, crisp mornings curling around coffee mugs. Daniel and Claire had fallen into a steady rhythm of work, parenting, advocacy, and late-night cuddles. Their lives, once turbulent and unsure, now move with purpose. But even solid ground can crack. It began with a phone call. Claire had just finished a Zoom interview with a regional radio station about her nonprofit's new campaign. She was halfway through reheating pasta for dinner when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ms. Davis? This is Deputy Finch from the Massachusetts Office of Child Welfare. We'd like to speak with you regarding a matter that's come to our attention. It's concerning Emma Carter. Claire nearly dropped the plate. The visit happened the next day. 2 social workers appeared at their door, polite but firm. Emma was at school. Daniel stayed silent, while Claire led the conversation. What's this about? She asked. One of the women, a stern, middle-aged woman named Ms. Howe, opened a folder. We received an anonymous report questioning the legitimacy of Emma's adoption process and whether undue influence was exerted on the judge. Claire's breath caught. That's outrageous. Daniel stepped forward. We followed every legal channel. We had court approval, multiple hearings, documentation. We understand, said the younger caseworker, Mr. Chu, but when a report is filed, we're obligated to investigate. Claire's voice dropped. This is Charles, isn't it? They didn't confirm. Over the following week, their lives became quietly chaotic. Interviews, resubmissions of legal paperwork, meetings with child services. Emma sensed a shift and grew clingier, more anxious. Her drawings turned darker. Daniel burned with quiet rage. Claire felt her chest tighten each morning. Then came the subpoena. Someone had filed a formal grievance questioning Judge Holloway's impartiality. Claire stared at the document. He's trying to undo everything. Daniel nodded. He's not done, not by a long shot. Mitchell Adams returned, no longer just their lawyer, but a guardian of their peace. We'll fight this. It's not unusual for powerful men to try to reshape the law when they lose. Claire sighed. Emma can't go through this again. Then we shield her. We stay transparent. We stay calm. Daniel wasn't so sure he could. The next blow came via media. A well-known conservative news outlet ran a piece titled Tech Billionaire's Questionable Adoption inside the Carter case. Though riddled with speculation, it painted Claire as manipulative and suggested Emma was being used as a PR tool. Daniel wanted to sue. Claire wanted to hide. Emma came home crying. My friend said I'm not real family. Daniel held her until she fell asleep. Then he stood in the living room for an hour, fists clenched, jaw locked. Claire whispered, he wants us angry. Daniel looked up. He wants us broken. But the cracks, though spreading, hadn't broken them yet. Claire arranged therapy sessions for Emma, this time with a trauma specialist. Daniel began recording video messages for Emma, stories, encouragement, truth she could watch when the world felt unkind. Claire wrote an op-ed, I am her mother, and this is why. It went viral. Donations flooded her nonprofit. Emma got letters from kids who were adopted, telling her she wasn't alone. One night, Emma asked, Is Grandpa Charles trying to take me away again? Claire hesitated. He's angry, honey, but he can't decide where you belong. Only love can do that. Emma nodded, then said something that nearly stopped Claire's heart. Then promised love won't leave. Never, Claire whispered. The state began their formal inquiry into the adoption. Daniel and Claire attended another hearing, this time administrative and quiet, but just as soul-wrenching. They answered questions, relived court decisions, watched old recordings. It felt like their truth was under a microscope again. When it ended, the panel said they'd need time. More waiting, more silence. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He stood on the porch, staring at the stars. Claire joined him. We did everything right, he said. And yet here we are. She leaned into him. You know what that means? He looked at her. It means the truth is strong enough to survive being tested. He kissed her hair. Then we hold the line. The hearing room was colder than Claire remembered. Its sterile walls and humming fluorescent lights a stark contrast to the warmth of the home they'd built with so much care. Emma sat between them, her tiny hands clutching a worn plush rabbit, a silent witness of the tension that clouded the air. Daniel reached over and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. She didn't look up. Not today. On the other side of the table sat a woman in a gray blazer, her expression unreadable. Beside her, a representative from Child Protective Services scrolled through a digital folder on a sleek tablet. Behind them stood a man Claire recognized from news coverage of Charles Benton's previous court cases. This wasn't just another review hearing. It was a battle, and Charles had drawn first blood. Weeks earlier, a series of anonymous tips had been filed with CPS alleging emotional instability in the Carter household. False accusations of favoritism, of Emma being coerced into loving parents she didn't biologically belong to. At first, Claire thought it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. But when local tabloid began publishing quotes from a source close to the family, she knew Ben was behind this. The man had lost in court, but he hadn't surrendered. He was determined to burn their family down, brick by brick. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Emma flinched. Claire bent low and whispered, "We're here, baby. We're all here." The judge nodded solemnly and signaled for everyone to sit. "We are here today to re-examine the custodial integrity of Emma Claire Carter, following new allegations received by Child Protective Services. Ms. Carter, Mr. Carter, you may proceed." Daniel stood, taller than anyone else in the room, but he didn't use his height to dominate. His voice was calm, respectful, clear. "We understand the importance of oversight, Your Honor. But let me say, unequivocally, these allegations are not only false, they are malicious. Our daughter is thriving. She's loved. She's safe." Claire rose next. Her voice didn't waver. "We've been through trials before. Public ones. Private ones. But through all of it, we've centered Emma's well-being. We've built our lives around her emotional health, her dreams, her future. We ask that you see this hearing for what it is, a vendetta wrapped in bureaucracy." Emma finally looked up. "Can I say something?" The judge blinked, surprised. "You may." Emma stood on the chair and looked around the room. "I don't know what all this means, but I do know that my mom and dad love me. They're my real family, even if I wasn't born to them. They tuck me in. They talk to me when I'm scared. They wrote me a book about me." She held up her handmade copy of Emma's story. "Crayons, glitter, and all. I don't want another family. I already have mine." Silence. Then the judge smiled softly. "That will be noted." After the hearing, Daniel's legal team sprung into action. They uncovered email threads linking Charles's assistant to the anonymous tips. More than enough to file a defamation suit. But that wasn't the point anymore. What's his end game? Claire asked as they sat together that night, wine glasses untouched on the table. Daniel exhaled. Control. Revenge. He couldn't have Emma, so he wants to make sure we never have peace. "He's exhausting," Claire muttered. "He's afraid. Of losing. Of irrelevance. And we're just collateral damage?" "Not anymore," Daniel said. "This ends now." The next week, Claire received an unexpected call. A producer from 60 Minutes wanted to interview her about adoption rights, the dark side of familial litigation, and the weaponization of public opinion. At first, she hesitated. Then she saw Emma reading her picture book in the backyard and made up her mind. They would fight back with truth. The segment aired on a Thursday night. Claire, poised and calm, told her story without embellishment. She talked about being a single mother, about the man who came back and tried to destroy what he never helped build, about the healing power of choice and love that isn't tied to blood. She ended with this. Emma is not a pawn. She's not a prize to be won or a headline to be chased. She's a child who deserves peace, and we will not stop fighting for her to have that. The response was overwhelming. Letters poured in. parents who'd gone through custody nightmares, adopted children who felt seen for first time, attorneys offering pro bono support, journalists begging for interviews. But none of it compared to what Emma whispered that night as Claire tucked her in. "I'm proud of you, Mommy." Claire's heart cracked open. Daniel's turn came a week later, when he gave a keynote speech at a philanthropy summit in Chicago. Instead of the usual statistics and jargon, he spoke from a heart. "I used to think success was numbers on a screen. But real success? It's waking up to a little girl who calls you Dad. It's building something no one can tear down, not even with lawsuits or lies." The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes, but Charles Ben wasn't done. His final move came in the form of a lawsuit, not for custody this time, but for defamation. He demanded Claire retract her statements on national TV, claimed emotional distress, reputational damage, and loss of professional standing. Daniel laughed when he read the paperwork. "He's suing us for telling the truth?" Claire wasn't surprised. This was always about ego. Their lawyers assured them it was a weak case, but the process would be draining. Another year of depositions, court dates, and public scrutiny. Emma had nightmares again. Claire found her one night huddled in a blanket fort in the living room, clutching her old stuffed rabbit like a lifeline. "He's never going to stop, is he?" she whispered. Claire knelt beside her. "He might not, but we won't stop either. Loving you, protecting you. Even when I'm old, especially then." In the midst of the chaos, Daniel proposed again. They were brushing their teeth. Of all things, Claire spat out her toothpaste. "Excuse me?" Daniel grinned sheepishly. "I just thought maybe we should renew our vows. Show Emma what love looks like when it fights back." So they did. A small ceremony in their backyard. Just the three of them, their closest friends, and a violinist playing Emma's favorite lullaby. Claire wore a pale blue dress. Daniel wore a linen suit. Emma officiated, holding a paper crown and declaring them forever married. They planted a tree after, a Japanese maple. Daniel called it their resilience tree. By fall, the defamation case was quietly dropped. Charles Benton's public image had taken its own hit. Turns out, bullying a child doesn't play well on television. He moved out of state, and for the first time in 2 years, his name stopped appearing in their mailbox. One evening, as leaves turned gold and the air hinted at winter, Emma climbed into bed beside Claire and whispered, "You know what I want to be when I grow up?" "What, sweetheart?" "A lawyer." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Really?" Emma nodded. "So I can help families stay together. Like ours." Claire pulled her close. "That's the best dream I've ever heard." The morning sky over the Carter estate stretched out in soft lavender and pale gold. It was a kind of dawn that promised peace, not just in the weather, but in the lives of the family inside that house. The storm had passed. Not the kind you could measure in inches of rain or miles per hour, but the kind that had once threatened to tear their world apart. And now, they had rebuilt something even stronger. Claire stood by the kitchen window, watching Emma chase butterflies across the dew-kissed grass. The girl had grown, taller, yes, but also braver. There was a confidence in her stride now, in the way she waved the gardener or called back to her mother with excitement in her voice. Behind Claire, Daniel walked in with 2 mugs of coffee, setting one beside her. "She's up early," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "She didn't want to miss the morning light. Says the butterflies dance better when the world's still quiet." Daniel chuckled. She's not wrong. They watched her for a moment longer, saying nothing. Words weren't always necessary anymore. Months had passed since the administrative hearing, since a final legal barrier fell, and their family was recognized in full, not just by law, but by the world. The media storm had died down. The Carter Family Initiative had flourished, and Claire had stepped fully into her national advocacy role, balancing travel and leadership with home life in a way only a woman forged by fire could. Emma, now 9, had recently written her first public piece, an essay titled My Forever Family, which ran in a national magazine special edition on adoption and blended families. It had gone viral. Teachers wrote in. Parents cried. Children like her reached out. She had become, unknowingly, A beacon. But even beacons have moments of doubt. One evening, Daniel found Emma sitting alone in the garden, her glitter pen still in her hand, her journal untouched. "What's on your mind? Starshine?" She didn't look up. "What if I forget what it was like? Before? What if I forget Mom holding my hand in the courtroom, or you saying I was yours forever? What if I grow up and can't remember the things that matter?" Daniel sat beside her, his voice quiet. "Then we write them down. We build reminders. We make new memories. The love will always be there, even if the details fade." Emma looked up at him, her eyes shimmering. "Promise?" "Forever and always," he said, sealing the words with a kiss on her forehead. Claire, meanwhile, was preparing for her keynote speech at the National Child Advocacy Summit. Her topic, the power of one voice to change a life. It wasn't just about Emma. It was about all the Emmas. When she stood on that stage, wearing a navy suit and her daughter's rainbow bracelet on her wrist, she didn't see a crowd of hundreds. She saw the courtroom, the judge, the moment the verdict came in, the way Emma clutched Daniel's hand. She saw herself, the woman who had once scrubbed floors and counted coins, now using her voice for something bigger. And she spoke, not like a politician or a policy expert, but like a mother. "I'm not here because I was brave," she said, her voice echoing across the room. "I'm here because I didn't have a choice, because a child needed me, because love made the decision before the law caught up." The crowd rose to their feet when she finished, not with polite applause, but with something rawer, a recognition. That night, back at home, Emma ran into her arms. "I saw you on TV. You were amazing." Claire laughed through her tears. "I did it for you." Later that summer, the family started a new tradition. They planted a tree in the backyard, just beyond the garden where Emma had once chased butterflies. They called it the Forever Tree. Every year, on the anniversary of their adoption hearing, they wrote letters, Daniel, Claire, Emma, and tied them to the tree. Promises, memories, hopes. This year, Emma's letter read, "Thank you for picking me, even when it was hard. Thank you for fighting for me. I promise to keep shining. I promise to be kind. I love you more than the stars." Claire's read, "You made me more than a mother. You made me brave. You made me whole." And Daniel's, "I didn't know what I was missing until I found both of you. My heart is fuller than I ever thought possible." Not everything had been perfect. There were still days when Emma struggled, days when questions came unexpectedly, at school, in public, from new faces. But now she knew what to say. "I'm a Carter," she'd say proudly. "I'm loved." Charles Benton had written once more, a single letter, delivered without ceremony. Inside was a photograph of Claire holding Emma at the hospital years ago, her eyes tired but fierce. Scrawled beneath it in barely legible handwriting, "You were always her mother. I see that now. I'm sorry." Claire didn't reply. She didn't need to. The past had been acknowledged, and the present no longer depended on it. Years later, when Emma stood at her own college graduation, Daniel and Claire watched in the front row, his hand in hers, tears on both faces. Emma wore a blue sash that read Child Advocate, Survivor, Believer. She was all of those things. But more than anything, she was theirs. Epilogue. One final letter tied to the Forever Tree. Some love is born. Some love is chosen. But the strongest love is the one that endures. Through courts and questions, through doubt and daylight, ours endured, ours thrived. And in that love, a little girl became a star. A woman found her voice. And a man became the father he was always meant to be. The wind rustled the trees' leaves, carrying their words into the sky. The legacy wasn't wealth. It wasn't even the foundation or the awards. The legacy was Emma, and she was just getting started,